Okay, thanks for bearing with me. I just reinstalled Linux, and for some reason it was not working properly. Thank you for coming today. My talk will be rather philosophical, and I want to talk about how do we align our values and financial freedom. So I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Please raise your hand if you value peace. Okay. Please raise your hand if you value nature. Great. Raise your hand if you value privacy. Now, raise your hand if you value open source software. Wow, we have a lot of alignment here on the values. And the question, how do we keep them? So I'd like to talk a little bit about the world we're living in right now. We live in societies whose economic and political system are mostly driven by capital. It's even hard to visualize the world that has different political and economical system. There is a statement from the author of this book called Capital Realism that sounds like it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. I think it's a very interesting statement. I think it captures precisely the world we live in, and it captures our ability to think about catastrophes of humanities that can come, but we cannot even think how do we organize ourselves into a different political system. We're living in a world where value is measured through a numerical system that can be translated into consumer buying power. So what do? How do we measure things like peace and privacy and value of nature? How do we keep our financial freedom? How do we deal with the world at the times of capitalism? We all need to feed our families. We want to have financial cushion in case we lose our job. We want to become financially independent. We all part of financial system. Each of us makes hundreds of economical transactions every day. The fact you are here is the result of economical transaction and your choice. You choose to come here because probably you value freedom, and maybe some for free lunch. And how do we live in this world, survive and strive? Enormous concentration of capital is a result of economical system we live in. I think the crucial aspect of the current system is how do we redistribute and allocate capital? And usually the system we live in results in inequality because it's driven by private capital and profits. So, financial freedom and permissionless systems. Even if you have a financial cushion, do you really feel financially free? Do you really feel that you can trust the system that you rely upon? For the first time in history, we have a system that allows us to reach consensus about what is true at the global scale, which is one of the key properties of this technology. The technologies of 21st century mostly led us to polarization. You probably all know about the scandals with social media networks, ability for those who control these networks or have access to manipulate the opinions of people. And I'm not talking only about the US. There are many other examples of providing different version of reality to the people who use those systems. We all lack the fundamental consensus to align on what is true. We need to be able to align on the same state of the world. Freedom is one of the fundamental values. In the sentence financial freedom, I believe the freedom is the main one. Freedom to transact, freedom to own, freedom to protect. Do you really feel financially free? Don't we depend on groups of people who don't necessarily take into account our opinions and position when they make decisions about regulations? Isn't there a permission enforced on us by the banks and financial institutions? It's only if we are granted that permission and we conform to the set of rules that are usually written in legal statements and some financial regulations, we allow to transact. Do you feel more free than your parents or grandparents or ancestors that lived 100 years ago, 300 years ago, 500 years ago? Don't get me wrong, I like living in the modern world and the quality of life is much higher, but I don't feel financially free in this world. Not your keys, not your money. It's so easy to make one trade-off and then another trade-off, and then eventually we are part of the system that controls our rails, our new rails, our blockchain rails. Freedom is one of our fundamental values, values that we need to protect. It's why Bitcoin and Ethereum were created in the first place. So going back to our values, generally we all want good things. We talked about in the beginnings. Things like peace, health of ecosystem, privacy, and open source software. The examples of privacy manifested in software are browsers like Tor, messengers like Signal. Examples of open source software manifested in the world are Ethereum protocol and Ethereum clients. All these values cannot just exist until they don't. At some point, somebody drops a bomb in a town. Somebody decides to destroy a forest that was a part of the nature ecosystem for centuries. Somebody decides they have a right to read your private data. What if developers don't have enough money to sustain themselves to keep building Ethereum protocol? Our values need to be protected consistently and vigorously, because if not, someone will push your boundaries and your values before you notice it. What I just said are examples of public goods. And when we fail to sustain them, coordination failures happen. The problem is the words like public goods and coordination failures don't really speak to us. They are too general. They don't speak to our passion. How does it affect me in the world? What is the relationship between an open source software library and me right here, right now? This is the question we should ask ourselves consistently. So how do we protect it? Value flows are around us. It's not coincident that the technology that brought us here is called Internet of Value. In order to protect our values, we need to fund them. Hello? We need to send the value flows towards what's important to us. We need to have a system where we express our choices. But how do we decide what to choose? I'm suggesting you this simple framework that was invented by the founder of Kickstarter, Yancey Strickler. It's called the Bento Box, because it looks like a Bento Box. Every time we're making a decision, we can pause and think how this choice will affect me now, how this choice will affect me in the future, how this choice will affect us. And by us, I mean your family, your community, your city, your country, your interests, what you value, the people around you. And then future us, how these choices affect all of us. I use this framework from time to time and recommend you to try it. And going back to more practical things, Octant is sustainable public goods funding system. Imagine a system that can understand what you value, capture your choice, and fund what matters to you. If done consistently and at scale, we can align and protect our values. What if I told you that you also could be rewarded for participating in a system like this? and contribute to your financial freedom. That's what our mission is, to create an ecosystem that balances the common good and financial empowerment. By the way, does anybody knows what Octant means? Can you raise your hand if you know what Octant means? Okay, 2 hands. I'm being honest with you, I was working on this project for half a year and I didn't know what it meant. And then I had like an eye-opening moment. Octant is the device that sailors used to navigate the sea to find where they go into their journey. Sorry. So I think it's very symbolical that our product called Octant, because it allows us to navigate where we want to go. What we achieved so far, we have been running for around a year. We use capital to generate sustainable stream of income that we use to fund public goods. The total yield is around 3,000 ETH. We gave away to users who are our participants in our systems and public goods projects around the numbers that you see. The public goods received around more than 1,100 ETH, and user received around 600 ETH. If you want to learn more about the journey so far, please come at Vistula stage today at 2 p.m., where our team member will talk about the details. And if you want to learn more about what is coming for Octant, please come here tomorrow at 10:30, and I will be talking about the next iteration of Octant. And hopefully you won't have to wait for another 5 minutes. It's your responsibility to stand by your values. Thank you. Did I make it in time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Still have, if you want to ask people to do questions, you can do that.
Are there any questions in the audience?
We have a few. Test. Hello. We have a few minutes before our next speech. So yeah, if you guys have questions for Octant, now's the time. It's very good speech. I felt like I was in church.
Thank you.
It's nice.